The woman who vanished 80 years ago has finally been found, but the truth shocked archaeologists. What would happen if a secret buried for hundreds or even thousands of years were suddenly brought back into the light? What would happen if a set of unidentified human remains could change what history has recorded for generations? What if an ancient temple, forgotten beneath the earth, emerged during an ordinary construction project? Or what if a story that the entire world had accepted as truth for years turned out to be nothing more than a misunderstanding? History is filled with mysteries like these. There are tombs that people searched for over 2 centuries before finally finding them. There are artifacts that lay untouched beneath desert sands for thousands of years before being discovered by pure chance. And there are skeletal remains that seem to have already told their entire story, only for modern science to reveal a completely different truth. Hello everyone, and welcome to Ancient History, where one mystery after another from the past is brought back to life. Have you ever wondered how many secrets of the ancient world are still hidden beneath the ground? How many kings, warriors, temples, and entire civilizations have vanished, yet we still do not fully understand who they were or what happened to them? If so, stay with me until the end of this video, because today, we are going to explore some of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries ever made. Mysteries that puzzled scientists for years, and truths that have only recently begun to emerge. From a legendary general who served under Napoleon, to a 2,200-year-old Pharaoh-era temple on the banks of Egypt's Nile River, to the famous pair of skeletons once regarded as a symbol of eternal love in Italy. What makes these discoveries so fascinating is that the closer researchers get to the answers, the more new questions they uncover. So which secrets have finally been solved? Which mysteries remain unanswered? And which discovery might completely change the way you view history? Are you ready to find out? If so, let's begin our journey of discovery right now. The traces of a woman who disappeared 80 years ago, inside an ancient tree. My friends, throughout human history, countless mysteries have left investigators, scientists, and the public struggling to find answers. Some cases seemed as though they could be solved within days, only to remain unsolved for decades. Some deaths left behind numerous clues, yet the deeper investigators looked, the more confusing everything became. And then there are stories so strange that upon first hearing them, people assume they are nothing more than urban legends invented to frighten others. But perhaps the most unsettling truth is that some of these stories are completely real. The story we are exploring today is a perfect example. To truly understand it, however, we must travel back in time to England during the dark years of World War II, where a horrifying discovery in a remote woodland gave rise to one of the most famous mysteries in British history. Now, imagine yourself walking through a silent forest. Ancient trees covered in moss stand tall amid a cold blanket of mist. You would never suspect that inside one seemingly harmless hollow tree lay a terrifying secret hidden for years. Everything began in April 1943. At the time, the war was raging across Europe. The British people lived with shortages and faced constant air raids from Nazi Germany. Against this backdrop, a group of boys sneaked into Hagley Wood to hunt birds and search for nests in hopes of finding extra food. What started as an ordinary childhood adventure soon turned into something that would change one of their lives forever. One of the boys climbed a large old tree and discovered something horrifying. Hidden deep inside the hollow trunk was a human skull. At first, he thought it was some strange object or a piece of oddly shaped wood. But upon closer inspection, the hair still attached to the skull and the faint traces of a human face left the boys frozen in shock. Fear immediately consumed them. The children fled the scene, carrying the terrifying secret with them. But secrets rarely stay buried forever. Only a few days later, police arrived at the forest and discovered the complete skeletal remains of a woman hidden inside the hollow tree. From that moment on, a haunting question emerged. Who was this woman? Why had her body been placed inside a tree in such a bizarre manner? And perhaps most importantly, who had done it? At first, investigators believed they would quickly solve the case. Instead, every lead ended in a dead end. The victim carried no identification. No one came forward to identify her. No missing person report matched her description completely. All that remained were a few worn pieces of clothing, a cheap wedding ring, and countless unanswered questions. Then the case took an even stranger turn. Only a few months after the body was discovered, mysterious messages began appearing on walls around Birmingham. Under the cover of darkness, someone wrote a question that would capture the attention of the entire nation. Who put Bella in the witch elm? But who was Bella? Was that truly the victim's name? Did the person who wrote the message know something the police did not? Was it the killer, a witness, or someone attempting to send a secret message? From that point forward, the investigation became more than a murder case. It evolved into a maze of rumors, bizarre theories, and unverified secrets. Some believed Bella was a German spy operating secretly in Britain during the war and had been eliminated after a mission went wrong. Others believed she had been the victim of an ancient occult ritual linked to witchcraft. Some even suggested that the entire affair was connected to an international espionage network operating within Britain itself. What made the story even more fascinating was that, over the decades, new witnesses continued to emerge. Mysterious letters were sent to newspapers. Partial confessions appeared and then vanished. Classified files were declassified. And each time, people believed the mystery was finally about to be solved. Yet every lead disappeared back into darkness. Even today, more than 80 years after the skeleton was discovered, messages asking about Bella occasionally appear, as if reminding the world that the secret has never truly been buried. Modern researchers have employed advanced scientific techniques, from facial reconstruction to statistical probability modeling, in an effort to uncover the truth. Yet the results have produced only possibilities, theories, and an endless series of unanswered questions. So who was Bella really? A wartime spy? The victim of a cold-blooded killer? Or an unidentified woman caught up in secrets she never had the chance to tell? What happened in Hagley Wood on that fateful night? And why, after nearly a century, has no one been able to provide a definitive answer? Together, we will follow every remaining clue, examine the most controversial evidence, explore the most chilling theories, and uncover the unresolved secrets surrounding a case often described as one of the greatest mysteries in British history. Prepare yourselves, because what you are about to hear is not merely the story of an unsolved murder, it is a journey into a mystery that has haunted generations for more than 8 decades. As you may have guessed, once police secured the scene and began their investigation, they quickly realized that this was no ordinary case. Inside the hollow tree were the heavily decomposed skeletal remains of the mysterious woman. Nevertheless, enough evidence remained for forensic experts to draw several important conclusions. The victim was believed to be approximately 35 years old and about 4 feet 11 inches tall. She also had a distinctive dental feature, 2 noticeably crooked front teeth. Under normal circumstances, this should have been a valuable identifying characteristic. Unfortunately, none of the thousands of missing person records from that era matched her description. Even more unusual was the position of the body. According to forensic specialists, the woman's body must have been placed inside the tree shortly after death. Had several hours passed, rigor mortis would have made it nearly impossible to fit the body into such a confined space. This suggested that the killer had both time and planning. Whoever committed the crime knew exactly where to hide the body and believed no one would ever discover the secret. Yet fate had other plans. During a closer examination, investigators found a piece of peach-colored taffeta fabric inside the victim's mouth. This immediately raised suspicions that she had been gagged or suffocated before her death. If true, it would clearly indicate a deliberate murder. However, with war raging across Europe, investigative resources were severely limited. Police had no DNA technology, no modern databases, and none of the advanced forensic tools available today. They possessed only scattered pieces of a puzzle that seemed impossible to complete. Then, just as the case began fading from public attention, something extraordinary happened. One morning, residents of Birmingham discovered a message written in white chalk on the wall of a building. Who put Bella in the witch elm? The question shocked the public. Until then, police had no idea what the woman's name might have been. So who was Bella? What did the writer know? Was the message written by the killer mocking investigators, or by a witness who had never come forward? Even more unsettling, similar messages continued appearing in various locations for years afterward. Each time they surfaced, the mystery of Bella returned to public attention. Like a ghost that refused to disappear, the question kept coming back, reminding everyone that the answer was still somewhere out there. Imagine how it would feel if, in your own city, mysterious messages about an unsolved murder kept appearing decade after decade. That is exactly what people throughout the Midlands experienced. As time passed, numerous theories emerged. One of the most famous suggested that Bella was a German spy secretly operating in Britain during World War II. It sounds like the plot of a Hollywood espionage thriller, but it was not entirely unreasonable. At the time, the Midlands served as a major center for British weapons and military aircraft production. Information about defense factories in the region would have been extremely valuable to Nazi Germany. If Bella truly was a spy, she may have been part of an intelligence-gathering network and later murdered after a mission failed. This theory gained additional attention when wartime intelligence records were declassified many years later. Some documents mentioned German agents being parachuted into Britain and operating behind Allied lines. Yet the deeper historians investigated, the more problems they encountered. There was no direct evidence that Bella had been a spy, no immigration records, no witnesses, no intelligence files mentioning a missing female operative who matched her description. Everything remained speculation. Meanwhile, another theory was even more disturbing. Some researchers suggested that Bella's death may have been connected to occult rituals or witchcraft. The reasoning centered on the location where her body was discovered. In many European folk traditions, ancient trees were believed to house spirits or play a role in ancient ceremonies. When additional bones were reportedly found scattered near the scene, some people began associating the case with mysterious sacrificial rituals. Among the most prominent supporters of this theory was anthropologist Margaret Murray. She believed that placing the body inside the tree may have carried ritual significance rather than simply being an attempt to hide a corpse. Not everyone agreed. Many experts argued that the witchcraft theory distracted attention from the simplest explanation. Bella may have been the victim of an exceptionally ruthless murderer, and perhaps that possibility is the most frightening of all. Because if this was indeed an ordinary murder, it means the killer escaped justice for more than 80 years. No one knows who he was. No one knows whether he is dead or alive. No one knows his true motive. As the years passed, generations of investigators retired. Important witnesses died. Records were lost. And perhaps most shockingly, Bella's skeletal remains themselves mysteriously disappeared from storage. Yes, the only remains that modern DNA technology might have used to solve the case could no longer be located. When researchers attempted to trace them, they discovered that no one knew exactly where the remains had been moved. A mystery had emerged from within a mystery. In 2018, facial reconstruction specialists created what is believed to be the closest possible likeness of Bella using the surviving data. The hope was that someone might recognize her face from old family photographs or forgotten keepsakes stored away in an attic. But once again, no one came forward. No one recognized her. No one knew who she was. And even today, the question written on walls more than 80 years ago continues to echo in the minds of those fascinated by historical mysteries. Who was Bella? Who placed her inside the tree? Was she a wartime spy, the victim of an occult ritual, or simply an innocent woman who fell into the hands of an unidentified killer? Perhaps the truth still lies hidden somewhere, in dusty archives, in the fading memories of a final witness, or in secrets buried by time itself. And until that answer emerges, Bella will remain one of the most haunting and enduring mysteries in British history. By now, I imagine you're feeling a chill down your spine as well, aren't you? The pair of skeletons holding hands in an ancient Italian tomb that misled the world for 1,500 years. If one day you came across two skeletons lying side by side in an ancient tomb, their hands still tightly clasped together, despite having rested there for more than a millennium, who would you assume they were? Most of you would probably think they were lovers, wouldn't you? That was exactly what many people around the world believed when archaeologists discovered a remarkable burial site in the city of Modena, in northern Italy, in 2009. The image of two skeletons lying close together with their hands intertwined quickly captured the public's imagination and was widely regarded as one of the most romantic discoveries in modern archaeology. However, more than a decade later, when modern science finally provided an answer, the truth turned out to be far more surprising than anyone had expected. You see, from the moment it was discovered in 2009, this ancient tomb became a major focus of attention among researchers. The two individuals had clearly been buried together intentionally. Although time had damaged many parts of their skeletons, the position of their clasped hands remained almost perfectly preserved. It was this touching image that inspired researchers to give them the emotional nickname, the Lovers of Modena. What many people did not realize, however, was that behind this romantic title lay a problem that scientists struggled to solve for years. The remains were in such poor condition that determining their sex using traditional archaeological methods was nearly impossible. The skeletal features normally used to identify biological sex had been severely damaged after centuries beneath the ground. As a result, despite numerous theories, no one could say with certainty whether the individuals were male or female. The mystery remained unsolved for more than a decade. Then researchers applied a new scientific technique based on analyzing traces of proteins preserved in tooth enamel. This modern method made it possible to determine biological sex even when DNA was no longer sufficiently preserved. The results stunned the international archaeological community. The famous pair of skeletons, long regarded as a symbol of love transcending time, were actually both men. This discovery immediately transformed the way scholars viewed the famous Modena burial. Yet instead of closing the case, it opened the door to even more questions. If they were not a man and a woman, as people had long assumed, then what was the true relationship between these two men? According to researchers, the two adult males were intentionally buried while holding hands, suggesting that they shared a very special bond. Italian scholar Federico Lugli proposed that they may have been brothers, cousins, or close relatives from the same family. Another theory that has attracted considerable attention among experts is that they may have been warriors who fought side by side and died in the same battle. What makes this possibility especially intriguing is that the excavation site where the tomb was discovered is believed to have been a cemetery for fallen soldiers. This detail gives additional weight to the warrior theory. Perhaps they endured brutal battles together, faced dangers side by side, and were ultimately buried next to one another as a symbol of their deep connection. Researchers from the University of Bologna in Italy believe that this discovery is extremely important for understanding burial customs on the Italian peninsula between the 4th and 6th centuries AD. The findings suggest that funerary practices during this period may have been far more complex and meaningful than scholars once imagined. Unfortunately, even today, the true identities of the two men remain unknown. We do not know their names, we do not know how they lived, and we do not know what circumstances led to their burial in such an extraordinary position. But one thing is certain: the tomb discovered in Modena, Italy, in 2009 has become one of the most fascinating archaeological mysteries in the world. You see, ancient skeletons do not merely tell us stories about death. They remind us that behind every grave lies a human story, a story of family, loyalty, friendship, or a bond so powerful that it continues to spark curiosity more than 1,500 years later. And perhaps beneath the ancient soil of Italy, there are still other secrets waiting to be uncovered. Secrets that may once again challenge what we believe to be true. What do you think? Personally, I believe the chances are very high, because the ancient world hidden beneath the earth remains deeply mysterious. And when it comes to what may still be waiting underground, we can never truly know what surprises lie ahead. The Egyptian tomb forgotten for thousands of years beneath mud and water. My friends, what do you think would happen if an ancient Egyptian tomb, buried beneath water and mud for thousands of years, were suddenly opened before the eyes of modern humanity? Would it contain nothing more than the decayed remnants of a distant past? Or could it be hiding secrets powerful enough to shake the world of archaeology? If you do not yet have an answer, then join me as we step into one of the most unusual and astonishing discoveries ever recorded in the land of the pharaohs. That place is Gebel el-Silsila, a famous archaeological site located along the legendary Nile River. This remarkable discovery was documented in the acclaimed Channel 5 documentary, Egypt's Tomb Hunters. It was here that archaeologist John Ward discovered the entrance to a mysterious chamber that had remained hidden for centuries. However, the doorway to the past was blocked by murky water, preventing anyone from knowing what lay inside. Determined to uncover the truth, the research team, together with presenter Tony Robinson, began pumping water out of the tomb complex. Hour after hour passed as the water level slowly dropped, revealing passageways buried beneath thick layers of mud. But the difficult conditions did not discourage them. When they finally gained access to the interior, Tony Robinson and John Ward had to crawl through deep mud to reach the main burial chamber. The sight before them was astonishing. It was a large burial room that had been carefully carved and constructed. The doorways and architectural details still demonstrated the extraordinary building skills of the ancient Egyptians. Yet what truly sent chills down everyone's spine lay beneath the water and mud. While examining the chamber, Tony Robinson realized that much of what remained of the bodies once buried there had become mixed together with the mud and water. He described the scene as resembling a disturbing human soup. Just imagine it. Many people had once been laid to rest in this chamber, some of whom may have held high status in ancient Egyptian society. Over time, water and mud had blended what remained of them into a scene so unsettling that it was difficult to describe in words. The discovery was both fascinating and deeply eerie, yet the greatest surprise was still waiting ahead. As the pumping operation continued, archaeologists noticed a massive object resting in one corner of the chamber. At first, no one knew exactly what it was, but once the mud was cleared away, an enormous pottery vessel emerged, almost completely intact. Tony Robinson could hardly contain his amazement. He remarked that after years of searching for ancient pottery, he had never seen anything like it. The vessel was so large that he compared it to a whale lying inside the tomb. According to John Ward, the container may once have held food or offerings buried alongside the deceased to serve them in the afterlife. What made the discovery even more remarkable was the condition of the artifact. Despite spending an incredibly long time submerged in water, the vessel had survived in an astonishing state of preservation. Experts stated that they had never encountered anything quite like it before. Not only does the artifact possess tremendous archaeological value, but it also serves as vivid evidence of the sophisticated pottery-making techniques mastered by the ancient Egyptians. What makes this discovery truly extraordinary is not merely its immense size, but also its incredible state of preservation. After thousands of years submerged beneath water and mud, the artifact remains almost intact, so well preserved that even experienced specialists admitted they had never seen anything comparable. And through this astonishing find, we gain an even deeper appreciation of ancient Egypt, one of the greatest civilizations in human history. That civilization emerged approximately 5,000 years ago along the banks of the Nile River and endured for nearly 3,000 years. It was an era during which thriving cities flourished, massive pyramids were constructed, and achievements far ahead of their time transformed the ancient world. The ancient Egyptians were renowned for their expertise in architecture, agriculture, and science. They developed a calendar based on the movement of the sun and created hieroglyphic writing, one of the earliest writing systems in human history. Their kings and queens, known as pharaohs, commissioned enormous tombs that were once considered among the largest structures on Earth. Perhaps most importantly, the ancient Egyptians held a profound belief in life after death. They worshipped approximately 2,000 different gods and believed that the soul would continue to exist in another world after death. Because of this belief, individuals of high status were often mummified and buried alongside valuable possessions to prepare them for their journey into the afterlife. Yet despite once ruling a powerful empire that stretched across vast territories, this magnificent civilization eventually declined for many reasons, ranging from wars with rival empires to devastating famines that lasted for centuries. But the biggest question still remains: was this giant vessel the only artifact hidden within the darkness of the tomb? Or are there still undiscovered secrets waiting for future archaeologists to uncover? That is what makes journeys into the past so captivating. Every layer of mud removed reveals not only an artifact, but also another chapter of history that humanity once believed had been lost forever. The 2,200-year-old temple of a mysterious pharaoh discovered beneath an Egyptian sewer project. You know, the world of archaeology is fascinating. Sometimes, the greatest archaeological discoveries do not begin with massive expeditions or research projects that take years to complete. Instead, they appear at the most unexpected moments, right in the middle of the most ordinary everyday tasks. And the story that unfolded in Sohag Province, southern Egypt, in 2019 is a perfect example, one that astonished the entire world. At the time, local workers were carrying out what seemed like a routine job, digging a new sewage drainage system. Everything was proceeding according to plan until the excavators unexpectedly struck an ancient stone structure buried deep beneath the ground. At first, no one knew exactly what had been uncovered. However, only a few days after archaeologists were called to the site and began their investigation, they confirmed that the workers had accidentally discovered an ancient temple approximately 2,200 years old. The temple is believed to have been associated with Pharaoh Ptolemy IV, the fourth ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which governed ancient Egypt. As soon as the discovery was reported, Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities ordered all construction work in the area to stop immediately. It did not take long for researchers to uncover stone blocks inscribed with ancient texts bearing the name of Ptolemy IV. These inscriptions became the most important evidence linking the temple to the pharaoh. The writings, preserved for more than 2 millennia, seemed to be telling a forgotten chapter of history that time had nearly erased. But the discoveries didn't stop there. As excavations continued, archaeologists revealed additional fascinating details. Researchers uncovered walls aligned along north-south and east-west axes, as well as part of the structure's southwestern corner, built from limestone and still remarkably well preserved. These findings suggest that the temple was once an impressive architectural complex constructed with extraordinary skill. Yet perhaps the most captivating discoveries were the carvings found on the ancient walls. There, archaeologists identified depictions of Hapi, one of the most important gods in ancient Egyptian religion. Hapi was the god associated with the annual flooding of the Nile River, the very river that sustained and shaped a civilization for thousands of years. In the reliefs, Hapi is shown carrying offerings, surrounded by birds and plants carved with remarkable detail. Despite the passage of more than 2,200 years, these images continue to provide a vivid glimpse into the rich spiritual life of the ancient Egyptians. The temple is located on the west bank of the Nile, a region long known for its abundance of important historical monuments. Even today, specialists continue working to preserve the remaining sections of the structure and protect them from further damage caused by time and environmental conditions. As for the temple's presumed owner, experts believe that Ptolemy IV ruled Egypt from approximately 221 BC to 204 BC. However, he was not particularly famous for his leadership abilities. Many historical accounts suggest that the pharaoh was more interested in art, entertainment, and personal pleasures than in governing his kingdom. Nevertheless, his name remains associated with one astonishing achievement. Ancient texts describe Ptolemy IV as the ruler who commissioned the construction of the Tessarakan Terrace, also known as the 40. It is considered one of the largest ships ever built in the ancient world. The vessel reportedly featured 40 oars on each side and required approximately 4,000 people to operate. That scale alone gives us some idea of the extraordinary ambitions of the pharaohs during this period. What makes this discovery even more interesting is that the temple in Sohag was only one of several remarkable archaeological finds made in Egypt during 2019. That same year, archaeologists uncovered 8 mummies dating to the Ptolemaic period at the Dashur necropolis near the city of Giza in northern Egypt. The mummies were housed in brightly painted coffins and were found in a remarkably well-preserved condition. Researchers also discovered a sandstone sphinx at Kam Ombo, a riverside temple near the city of Aswan dedicated to the crocodile god Sobek. In addition, a tomb approximately 4,400 years old was uncovered at the archaeological site of Saqqara. These successive discoveries not only helped scientists gain a deeper understanding of ancient Egyptian civilization, but also contributed significantly to the recovery of Egypt's tourism industry following the upheaval caused by the Arab Spring in 2011. According to a United Nations tourism report released in 2018, Egypt was the fastest-growing tourism destination in the world during 2017, with international visitor numbers increasing by an impressive 55.1%. At the time, that was truly a remarkable figure, wasn't it? A mysterious bloodstain clung to a golden mask for 1,000 years. Scientists were stunned when they discovered the truth. The story began in the 1990s when archaeologists working on the Saqqan Archaeological project excavated a massive ancient tomb. What they did not expect was that more than 39 feet beneath the surface lay the resting place of a powerful figure from the Saqqan civilization, a culture that thrived in Peru between the 9th and 14th centuries. Yet what captured the world's attention was not the enormous quantity of grave goods or the wealth of the deceased. Instead, it was a golden mask carrying a mystery that had never been fully explained. When the mask was brought to the surface, researchers noticed that its exterior still bore a layer of dark red pigment. At first, this was assumed to be nothing more than traces of cinnabar, a rare mineral frequently used by elite members of ancient societies during sacred ceremonies. But then a question emerged that left everyone puzzled. How could a red coating only about 0.04 to 0.08 inches thick remain firmly attached to a gold mask after being buried underground for more than 1,000 years without fading away? What seemed like a simple question soon launched one of the most fascinating archaeological investigations of recent decades. Scientists decided to use the most advanced technologies available to analyze the composition of the mysterious red layer. The results left them speechless. But before revealing that secret, let's take a closer look at the strange scene inside the tomb. You see, the skeleton of the powerful man had been covered in a brilliant red substance and was buried face down in an unusual position. Even more striking was the fact that his skull was not attached to the rest of his body. Instead, it had been separated, positioned upright, and fitted with the mysterious red-colored mask. Surrounding him were more than a ton of grave goods, along with the remains of several other individuals, including 2 young women positioned as though one were giving birth while the other assisted in the delivery, as well as 2 small children placed above them in crawling poses. Together, these elements created a scene that was both solemn and unsettling. It felt less like an ordinary burial and more like a profound spiritual ritual that we still do not fully understand today. Have you ever wondered why the Sican people arranged everything in such a peculiar way? Were they trying to send a message to the afterlife? Or was this part of a ritual intended to help the deceased be reborn? The answer began to emerge when chemists at the University of Oxford analyzed the red coating using advanced scientific techniques. What they discovered was something no one expected. The ancient pigment contained not only cinnabar, but also traces of human blood proteins and proteins from egg whites. In other words, the red substance that had remained attached to the golden mask for more than 1,000 years was actually made from a mixture containing real human blood. This discovery immediately revived long-standing theories about Sican beliefs concerning rebirth after death. According to archaeologists, the color red symbolized vitality, strength, and the flow of life itself. Covering the deceased and ceremonial objects with blood may have been seen as a way of transferring life force and energy to the dead as they journeyed into another world. Yet the deeper researchers investigated, the more mysterious the story became. Whose blood was used? Under what circumstances was it collected? And were the bloody sacrificial rituals once practiced by the Sican civilization connected to this unusual coating? To better understand the significance of the mysterious red pigment, we must travel back more than 1,000 years to a time when the Sican civilization was flourishing along Peru's northern coastline. This society was renowned for its sophisticated metalworking, elaborate religious ceremonies, and powerful belief in the spiritual world. For the Sican people, death was not an ending. It was simply the doorway to another journey. Perhaps it was this belief that led the powerful man buried in this tomb to receive a funeral ritual unlike any other. As archaeologists continued studying the site, they realized that every detail within the tomb had been arranged deliberately. Nothing appeared to have been left to chance. The skeleton was covered in bright red pigment, seemingly symbolizing life continuing beyond death. The skull had been separated from the body and adorned with the golden mask, as though the deceased continued to watch the world from beyond. Around him were exquisitely crafted luxury items that reflected his exceptionally high social status. Yet what drew the greatest attention from experts was the presence of the other human remains. 2 young women had been positioned to resemble a woman in labor and a midwife assisting with childbirth. Above them were 2 young children posed as if they were crawling. For many researchers, this was not simply an unusual burial arrangement. It may have been a powerful symbol. Think about it. A powerful man has died. Around him are images associated with birth and the beginning of new life. Could the Sican people have been attempting to represent a cycle connecting death and life? Did they believe that this leader would be born again in another world? That is precisely the theory that many archaeologists have supported for years. And the discovery of human blood within the red pigment appears to provide additional evidence supporting that interpretation. According to researchers, the color red may have represented blood itself, something regarded as the source of life in many ancient cultures. When blood was mixed with cinnabar and applied to a body or ceremonial object, it may have symbolized the transfer of vitality and power to the deceased during the process of rebirth. What makes this particularly interesting is that this is not the first time scientists have uncovered evidence linking human blood to Sican rituals. Previous studies have suggested that the Sican people practiced sacrificial ceremonies. Some excavated skeletons display deep cuts across the neck and chest, indicating that blood may have been intentionally collected during religious rituals. For that reason, many experts were not entirely surprised to find traces of human blood on the golden mask. What truly astonished them, however, was the extraordinary preservation of the coating. After more than 1,000 years underground, the protein traces remained intact enough to be identified by modern scientific instruments. This suggests that the Sican may have possessed a remarkable understanding of materials, knowledge that we may have underestimated for far too long. Mixing cinnabar with egg whites may not only have helped the pigment adhere more effectively, but may also have created a natural protective layer that preserved the color for centuries. If this theory is correct, Sican artisans may have unintentionally developed a preservation formula far more advanced than we have traditionally attributed to ancient South American civilizations. Yet even here, a new mystery emerges. If the red coating symbolized rebirth, why was the man's skull separated from his body? Why was he buried face down rather than on his back, as was common in many burial traditions? And why were the women and children arranged around him in such a mysterious composition? To this day, no one can provide a definitive answer. But what about you? Can you think of an explanation? If you have a theory, don't hesitate to leave it in the comments below so we can discuss it together. The one-legged skeleton found in Russia and the 207-year mystery of the Tiger General mourned by Napoleon. Did you know that for more than 2 centuries, the fate of one of Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte's most talented generals remained a mystery that puzzled historians? He was a man who fought across Europe, achieved countless military victories, and was regarded by Napoleon not only as a trusted commander, but also as a close friend from childhood. Yet after he fell on the battlefields of Russia in 1812, the final resting place of this legendary general seemed to disappear from history. That was until the summer of 2019, when an astonishing archaeological discovery in the city of Smolensk, Western Russia, sent shockwaves through the research community. On July 6, 2019, a joint French-Russian archaeological team unearthed a wooden coffin buried deep beneath the ground at a construction site in Smolensk. The location had previously served as an outdoor dance floor, so no one imagined that beneath it lay a historical secret hidden for more than 200 years. And naturally, the archaeologists themselves were just as surprised as anyone else, but their astonishment grew even greater when they opened the grave. Inside was a skeleton with a highly unusual characteristic. One of its legs was missing. Immediately, this detail brought to mind a famous name in French military history: General Charles-Étienne Gudin. According to historical records, Charles-Étienne Gudin was one of Napoleon's most trusted commanders. During the French invasion of Russia in 1812, he was struck by an artillery shell during the Battle of Valutino. The wound was so severe that military surgeons were forced to amputate his leg above the knee. Sadly, despite their efforts to save him, Gudin died just 3 days later at the age of 44. When experts examined the skeleton discovered in Smolensk, they noticed that the missing leg matched historical descriptions perfectly. Not only that, but several other injuries found on the skeleton corresponded closely with wounds Gudin was known to have suffered during his years of military service. Marina Nestorova, the leader of the excavation team, later stated that she had a powerful feeling from the very first moment she saw the remains. According to her, she almost immediately believed that the team had found Charles-Étienne Gudin himself. Of course, scientists do not rely on intuition alone. DNA testing was quickly conducted to verify the identity. Preliminary reports indicated that the remains belonged to a man who died between the ages of 40 and 45, perfectly matching Gudin's age at the time of his death in 1812. What makes the story even more interesting is that the archaeological team did not stumble upon the grave by accident. The search for Gudin's burial site began in May 2019 under the leadership of French historian Pierre Malinowski. For months, he and his colleagues examined numerous historical documents from both Russia and France. The records of Marshal Louis-Nicolas Davout, who personally organized Gudin's funeral after his death, became one of the most important leads. In addition, accounts from witnesses who lived during that era helped researchers narrow down the burial location with remarkable precision. After the remains were discovered, Pierre Malinowski spoke emotionally about the find, saying that he had finally located the heroic general after 207 years beneath the soil of Smolensk. For him, it was one of the most important days of his life. The story becomes even more moving when we consider the relationship between Gudin and Napoleon. The two attended the military school at Brienne together as boys. They grew up side by side, fought in countless military campaigns, and became close friends. According to historical accounts, when Napoleon received news of Gudin's death on August 22, 1812, he broke down in tears. Gudin's heart was later transported back to France by the French army and buried in a chapel at Père-Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. The rest of his body, however, remained in Russia for more than 2 centuries until it was finally rediscovered. The general's legacy survives to this day. His portrait is displayed at the Palace of Versailles. His name is engraved on the famous Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And a street in the French capital also bears the name Charles-Étienne Gudin. It is fair to say that the discovery in Smolensk did far more than solve a historical mystery that had endured for more than 200 years. It opened a window into the final days of Napoleon's empire. A one-legged skeleton lying silently beneath the soil of Russia told a story of friendship, loyalty, and the tragedies of one of the most famous wars in human history. Quite fascinating, isn't it? Isn't it? My friends, after exploring these incredible discoveries, we have probably realized one important thing. History is not just a collection of words written in books. Every ancient tomb, every skeleton, and every artifact that is uncovered has a story to tell. A story that time once tried to hide. Although many mysteries have already been solved, countless unanswered questions still lie buried beneath the earth, waiting for future excavations to bring them to light. So, which discovery featured in today's video surprised you the most? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to join us on future journeys into the past by subscribing to Ancient History and turning on notifications so you never miss an upcoming discovery. For now, thank you for watching. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next adventure.